What's going on, everybody? If you're new here, I am Jason, and this is JMT Photography and Media. I'm just a photographer who likes to talk about Fujifilm and other topics related to photography. So today, what I wanted to kind of really do a brain dump about is the most significant camera I think Fuji has made for the XT line. We've heard about the new X-T5 being out, and the reviews are out there. People are doing reviews on YouTube, and I'm sure we're going to hear a lot more in the next couple of months, about the performance of the camera, then the 40 megapixel sensor and everything like that. And I do agree that this X-T5 is probably the best XT camera to date, because it takes so much of the goodness from all of the other previous XT cameras. When you think about it, the design from the very first X-T1 obviously has carried all the way through to, to now. The bump up in megapixels now to 40 megapixels, when we started at 16. You have the tilt screen, the touch screen functions of the X-T3 carried through to, the current. You've got the bigger battery of the X-T4 and the X-T5. So X-T5 truly is probably the best, Fuji X-T of all time, and probably the best APS-C camera of all time. That's my opinion, obviously, and we could debate it, but that's my opinion of it. I think that's the best APS-C probably we've seen to date, depending on your needs. But what I think, like, I've already made a video about the X-T1 being my favorite camera of all time. But I think if I want to think about what is the most significant camera, and significance is a broad term, I'd probably say the X-T2 is probably the significant camera of all, because it really turned the corner of the refinement of the X-T1 to be a true professional APS-C camera, right? Because the X-T1, as good as it is, there were some things that people probably, didn't like about it to be their true kind of takeover from a DSLR at the time. It probably was a good second camera for personal purposes, but to use it professionally and really dive into it as their mirrorless system, I think the X-T2 probably was the camera most people would say is was the significant. And I would say because you have the refinement of more megapixels, so we went from 16 to 24. We've got the dual card slots that was not in the X-T1, so that made it, the redundancy issue was solved there. And then the inclusion of more legitimate video functions. And I think those three things really made the X-T2 the most significant. And I have a soft spot for the X-T1, right? The X-T1 is, it's got a magic you can't quantify, right? But I think the X-T2, from a broader, standpoint of using it professionally, really is the most significant XT camera, I think. And I think the X-T3 really, took that X-T2's magic and jumped it up another level by including the headphone jack and some other things that I'm probably not aware of. I'm sure that the community knows about. But I think that it really made it a true video hybrid. I think most people would want to look for. I think it was 4K 60, if I'm not mistaken. But, correct me if I'm wrong there. But I've not had a chance to use the X-T3, the 4 or the 5, but I do have extensively used X-T1, and I also have the X-T2. So, I have experience in both. And I think, one little thing about the X-T2 over the X-T1, the lockable dial for the ISO and shutter, that was definitely a game changer too. So, especially if you're, for me, I'm using flash in events and things like that, being able to change the ISO, just a little bit here and there makes a big difference, and not having to press it in and turn it and then being able to lock it makes a big difference for me. So really enjoy that about the X-T2. So I would say so. If you're in the market for a Fuji camera and you're looking at the X-T5, I would say look at some of the older cameras. Um, as much as the X-T5 is such a beautiful camera, if you don't have the budget for it, the rest of the XT line, the older models are a fantastic value. I would probably say the best value is the X-T2. You really have that sweet spot of price right now. It's probably, you know, maybe between $500 and $600. And you have all those features that really keeps it a very good modern camera. The only thing you don't have is maybe a touch screen if you really want that. But other than that, you've got 24 megapixels. That's more than enough. You got the dual card slots. It's weather sealed. Um, you got all the Fuji's, film simulations, all that magic. If you know about it, you know about it. So I would highly recommend, if you're getting into it, X-T2 is probably the one to go for in the XT line. Oh, and another note. So a lot of noise around the X100V being out of stock. And, we already know that XE4 is kind of like the interchangeable lens version of it. But I would say the XE3 is probably a camera people should consider if they want a small, X100V like, size. But you can change the lenses. It doesn't have any tilting, but, still 24 megapixels, has a touchscreen. I think it's a great value. So that's all I got today. I'm going to end it here. So let me know what you guys think about the X-T2 and the XT line in general, and what are your thoughts. All right, take care.